tonight. Overcrowded, understaffed and unsafe. It is no secret that Britain's prisons are in crisis, buckling under increasing pressure for some time. Things are only getting worse. By 2027, in fact, the prison population in this country could be over 106,000 people in a worst case scenario. It's currently around 88,000. It's so bad, in fact, that the government is considering renting jail cells abroad, an idea that this consultant attending a committee session on the topic today struggled to believe was real.
I mean, I have to say I've been in this arena of criminal justice for a long time and nothing really surprises me much, but this one, I was really, flabbergasted when I read that this was a sort of serious proposal. Frankly, I don't think it's really a very legitimate way of running a penal system to transfer people in that way.
You can sense his disbelief, can't you, that how did things get this bad? Witnesses giving evidence said they weren't sure the Ministry of Justice really knows what's going on, the scale of the issue. MP and Chair of the Commons Justice Committee, Sir Bob Neal, joins me now. Also joining us, National Chair of the Prison Officers Association, Mark Fairhurst, to get into this discussion a bit more. Gentlemen, thank you, Bob. Just coming to you first, in terms of what was discussed today, how has it got this bad, in your opinion?
Because I don't think we as a society have invested enough in prisons and indeed in the criminal justice system as a whole for decades. And that goes back under governments of all colours, because I'm literally talking decades. We have never given it the level of priority that we should. And that means you have a rundown and often a very antiquated prison estate. As you said, we have difficulties recruiting sufficient officers, and they're having to work under often very unsatisfactory conditions. That in turn means that our prisons are becoming overcrowded, because at the same time as we haven't invested in prisons, governments, again, of all political colours, have tended to increase the number of offences, have ramped up, if you like, the rhetoric around being tough on sentencing, but haven't been prepared to put the money to back that rhetoric of tougher sentencing up. It's truly, I'm afraid, as simple as that. And we need to have an honest conversation with the public about prison being a very expensive option. £47,000 a year for a prison place. It's necessary for those people who are dangerous, but our committee is concerned that there's a lot of people in prison who are not a threat to society. They've done wrong, they've made mistakes, they've often been in a pretty chaotic situation, but we need to look at cleverer ways of dealing with those lower level offenders than warehousing them in prisons at the moment at great public expense.
Why, quite simply, have we underinvested, Sir Bob, in this? Is it that it's not fashionable, hard to sell to the public? Why haven't the government allocated the funds for this?
I think it is actually down to societal attitudes. It requires a bit of leadership from politicians of all parties. It saddens me that very often you get a bidding war between all the parties as to who's going to be tougher on crime. Being tough on crime isn't just about tougher sentencing. It's actually about smarter sentencing and making sure that those who are convicted are turned around wherever possible and rehabilitated so they don't get into cycles of reoffending. And that's because I think we've not been prepared to be honest with the public about the cost that's involved and to be honest with the public about there may be cleverer ways of punishing people when they've done wrong. Nothing wrong with that. There may be cleverer ways of doing that in many cases in the community, and then where you do have to lock people up in prison because they're a threat and a danger, you have to invest in the resources to enable the prison staff, Mark's people and others who work there, to be able to do a proper job, and at the moment they're struggling to do so.
Well, let's find out a bit more about that. Listen to Mark Fairhurst, who's joining us as well, Mark. Just give our viewers a sense of how bad things are for prison officers at the moment, what conditions are like in some prisons.
They're absolutely horrendous. What you've got to understand is that we do struggle to recruit and retain staff simply because if I joined the job as an 18-year-old recruit today, my retirement age is 68, which means I have to work for 50 years on the front line before I can enjoy a full career and a full pension. We don't expect that of any other uniformed public sector body, so why do we expect it of prison officers? There are some prisons that can't provide a regime, which means prisoners are locked up for prolonged periods. Through no fault of the staff, simply because we haven't got enough staff to unlock and provide that regime. So we are in crisis mode. We seem to flip from one crisis to the next, and Bob's quite right. We need a major investment in our prisons, but like you say, prisons are not a vote winner.
That's what stood out to me, Mark, in this, because I just don't hear much from politicians I interview about prisons. And when I look at this issue from your point of view, I can just see how bad it is. And I hear about this spiral where the more violent and terrible a prison gets, the more the staff want to leave, and thus the violence increases, and you end in this doom loop. In terms of a fix, if we can get one, we'll come back to this idea of offshoring prisons to different countries. But is there any quick way you could see to kind of quickly get some sort of solution so there's more space in prisons?
Well, we have turned failing prisons around in the past, but to do that, we need to reduce the population, shut wings down, and refurbish them over a long period of time. That takes a major investment. And of course, we need prison spaces to do that. So to create those prison spaces, Bob's chair of the select committee, who recommended to the government last year that they should re-sentence IPP prisoners. That could free up a couple of thousand spaces. They've done the right thing on the presumption of 12-month sentences or less, where we can give robust community sentences. That's helped. But our own predictions are, by the end of March, beginning of April, we'll be back to square one, we'll be at tipping point, we'll have no space left, and we'll probably have to utilise Operations Safeguard, where we use police cells, at great expense to the taxpayer. So there's been some bad decisions made by this government since they came into power, but that takes nothing away from successive governments who have failed to invest entirely in the whole criminal justice system, not just our prisons.
We don't have much time, but I do want to get both of your view just quickly on this idea of offshoring prisoners, that we heard the disbelief during the discussions today that this would even be considered as an option, Mark. Is it a viable option to send prisoners to other countries?
It's a nonsense, it's ridiculous. I'm sure you won't be short of volunteers in the British prison system to do a few months in a Spanish prison during the summer months. You'll soon leave with a healthy tan. Who's going to transfer them there? What jurisdiction are they going to be under? What are the standards going to be like? Are British prison officers expected to supervise them in a foreign country? It's absolutely ridiculous. Is it just a headline to detract from the crisis we face? I don't know. It's a ridiculous decision.
It sounds like a sort of Rwanda scheme for prison. Bob, just briefly, your thoughts on it too?
Yeah, well, you heard the evidence given to our committee, and I don't challenge that. I don't think this is going to be of much practical benefit. The only area any place where it worked to any degree was between Holland and Belgium. They were right next door to each other. They're small countries. We're in a completely different situation. I think it's much more important that we, for example, concentrate on the maintenance backlog. There's a massive maintenance backlog in our prisons, which means that on any given day, some hundreds of cells are out of commission and can't be used. That makes it even worse. I totally agree with Mark about resentencing IPP prisoners. These are people who are on an indefinite sentence. We need to speed up the court system. We've got record numbers of people in prison on remand awaiting trial. They haven't been convicted yet, so that needs to be speeded up. And we need to have tougher community orders, tougher community sentences, so you can punish people. But now you've got much better electronic tagging, other means of keeping a hold on people, alcohol monitors that could be fitted to folk, and drugs monitoring and so on. Let's concentrate on using prison for those who are dangerous rather than those who have caused a problem to people, but because they're chaotic. And if we do that, we might get them out of the cycle of reoffending. That's the other big problem we've not yet addressed.
We've clearly got the ideas there. You've got some solutions. It's just the money that's lacking. Look, thank you, gentlemen, for that conversation. Mark Fairhurst, National Chair of the Prison Officers Association. Great talking to you.